Internets, welcome back to another episode of the Premium Pete Show. Undisclosed location in ATL with my dear friend, a good fella. Too many names. I mean, I guess we could say actor. I guess we could say, well, first of all, return guest. That's first of all.
I am.
Multiple return guests. Friend, actor, artist, activist, and just an overall good fella, my friend, Killer Mike.
Pete, what up, man? How you doing?
Man,
always happy to be
Always. And Sneaker Fiend. What?
I am. I got all my favorite sixes today.
I mean, listen, getting fresh is not just something that happens, one place or one city. Nah. It's all over the world.
Nah, you supposed to get fresh on your bum days. When you got on cargos to kill your master joint, still have on your Jordans. Like, you getting fresh. Even, like, I got certain polos that I've just worn at the same time just to, like, point they faded, not just wear the whole faded outfit together. The jewelry still be sparkly though. I
always tell people too, Atlanta had a lot of dudes. You know, it's funny when you think about the legendary Walters.
Yeah.
And then Isaiah, what did you say before? You mentioned about
man, rest in peace to Grady too.
Yeah,
he worked the walk 50 years. He just passed, so rest in peace.
You used to be able to go to Walters. I remember when Street brought me there. Shouts to DJ Greg Street. You used to be able to go to Walters and be able to get old sneakers, like older stuff, like, back in the day stuff that they really didn't know. Yeah, that they didn't know they were sitting on that was good stuff.
Yeah.
But ATL always had like a big market for sneakers and getting fresh.
Yes. Polo and what, like, you know how the low lives were in New York?
Yep.
Like, Polo was just a way of life down here because golf, of course, is big. And, if the whether it was East Lake Golf Club or the Masters all the way out in Augusta and stuff, like my cousins worked as caddies and stuff, so they would get gifted like the pink, the salmon polo collared shirt. My cousin was one of the first people I saw wear because he was rocking the polo style polo shirts. My cousin came in, I remember just like, what the fuck he picked? That's crazy. And the next thing you know, I had to convince my mom. And it was crazy because he had the one, it was a salmon color, but it was like the chocolate horse. And it wasn't just a white horse on it. So it was crazy. But the rugby game, so polos and Nikes. Feelers, of course, was always big in Atlanta. But for me, like Air Maxes and polos always been it for me.
Being fresh, it's like it's a way of life, Yeah. When we think about, it's crazy too. You have morphed into also a tremendous I could say motivational speaker. No, I'm dead serious. I'm saying as a friend, I'm saying this.
I'm an encourager.
We have enough critics in the world. Let's get more encouragers.
I'm an encourager, yeah.
But do you and let me actually back this up. When Mike Brown, when that went down, okay, you were at a Run the Jewels. Shouts to LP.
Shouts out to L.
And you made a speech. Remember that about the machine?
We were in Ferguson. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, in Ferguson.
Yeah. Well, we were in St. Louis, but it happened. Of course, the incident was in Ferguson. We weren't far. I didn't even want to speak. I was on the bus crying when it came down at the what's the name? Like it hit me hard because I'm just like, yo, this is it. And my wife and L convinced me to go out. Chea and L had a talk with me, and I went out and said something on stage and resonated with people and helped bring people together. You know what I mean? So, but for me, that's what you do as a man when you have an opportunity to help, you help. And if you can't help, you just simply say, I can't help, but I'll help whoever's helping,
I heard someone say before, when you have the mic or when you're, and I don't mean only literally the mic, but meaning like when you're moving and grooving and in the spotlight, say something. I always heard that a lot. Like, but like when you have, like figuratively speaking, when you have the mic, you say something, right? Yeah. Because you may not have the mic or people may not want to hear what you have to say all the time, right? Yeah. But even like the speech you made recently in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like I've seen, besides knowing you, I know that's who you are, and it's so blessing to have a friend like that. That friends inspire you.
Absolutely.
But do you get like, honestly, you get like goosebumps from that? Or when you go there, like when you go in this, because
I get nervous before every show. Every show before I rap, it's a, I like muscle cars. I like driving fast. Like if I ain't going 160, 170 miles an hour, I ain't really having no fun. So that feeling of anxiousness and anxiety and fear, it propels you. So like the speeches, quote unquote, I've done have been the moment called me to that duty. Not that I necessarily planned to prep. I have been prepped for this. When I look in retrospect to my life, to the way my grandparents raised me, and the time and energy people from my community and like teachers and my mentors and friends put into me, I didn't realize that I've been prepped for these moments my whole life. You know what I'm saying? But I don't prepare for them. So yeah, I'm scared as shit, to be frank, because you don't want to say fucked up shit to get people fucked up or hurt. You want to be honest and maintain integrity, but that don't always mean you're ready to speak. You know,
the lines that came out of it were
plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize.
I mean, those words are powerful. But you know, it's also important that when you're talking out of your heart, which you're full of heart, and that you don't go left. You know what I mean? Like saying, like going crazy and threatening people, and like you know, a lot of people don't know how to talk with passion without you know, getting angry or violent.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through every phase of it though. Like I've been an organizer, you know, since I was 15 years old by personal choice. But I've been around organizing probably since I was 5. You know, I'm from my grandmother had me at, you know, so Carter and Reagan is what, 79, 80? Yeah. The elections is 79, 80. So my first memories of organizing are next to my grandmother, you know, trying to get Carter reelected, which it didn't end up happening, but I'm next to her in the voting booth. I'm next to her getting people, taking them out, you know. So by the time Andrew Young runs for mayor and Maynard and all this stuff all this is just a part of my life. So by the time I get 14, 15 years old, I just find organizations that are compatible with my goals and motives are. And that's everything from Black Teams for Advancement, which was formed out of public schools. Yep. It was young Black men who self-organized to end violence because it was beef between schools to get to the point where it was killing each other. So, you know, people like former city councilman Kwanzaa Hall were older than us. Him and his dudes, they got together like, y'all young dudes can't bring this kind of violence in. So within a couple of years, I was national spokesman of that organization, Kids for a Change, which was an organization that taught kids to organize. I spent some time at Mosque number 15 with the NOI, learned from the FOI how to organize and discipline myself. So, you know, the Michael that was radicalized at 15, 16 years old was passionate and would have, because I've always grown up in the presence of guns, in the presence of, you know, fishing, farming, stuff like that. Yep. So I was capable of handling myself, but my grandparents taught me logic. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather and grandmother. And because I was in Atlanta, everybody was Black too. My heroes and villains were all Black. Yep. So name
some of your heroes.
Yeah. Huh?
Name some
of my heroes. My personal heroes are my grandparents. Yep. You know, in terms of the men that were in my life, my grandfathers, my uncles and stuff. But in terms of people that I did not know that were heroes to me, that's a vast people from Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X. It was people like Zora Neale Hurston. Of course, Ayanna Van Zant. It was, Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley Chisholm. You know, it was just dynamic people that were on the streets here. Reverend James Orange, Alice Johnson, Walter Cleveland. It was just an amazing amount of people that I knew and people that I didn't know I read. Some of my biggest heroes are James Baldwin, who to this day, you know, Arturo Schomburg, Eugene Debs, Lucy Parsons are all, you know. So for me, just that people who were from the mud who dared to defy oligarchy. I found a pattern in myself. I like the X-Men, but I found myself cheering for Magneto a lot. Yeah. So the people that I've tended to see as heroes, including but not limited to people like Mutulu and Assata Shakur, you know, Leonard Peltier, you know, if it wasn't for those anti-establishment people, Fred Hampton, you know, George Jackson, I don't think I would have had grown into the person I am. But I also got heroes that don't fit that mold. Like, you know, Walter E. Williams is a hero of mine, very conservative man, you know what I'm saying, Black man, an economist, but he reminds me a lot of the men in my family in terms of how they view the world and how you're supposed to take care of yourself. So a lot of different heroes for different reasons.
You know, it's funny because you grew up in Atlanta, you know, young kid, organizing, hustling, staying fresh.
At the same time.
Mom's a G.
Yeah, she is.
Pops was
my father in my elementary years was a police officer, and my mother, they weren't together because she was 19, she was 16 when I was born, and my mother went on to become a queen pin. I woke up like 2 weeks before my 15th birthday. My mother was picked up for attempting to buy 10 kilos of cocaine in Griffin, Georgia, and then she told me it was really 20. Cops stole half the money.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's some G
but
shit, man.
She laughed and she talked about it. She, you know, they were attempting to search her. She said, she told them, you know, back then everybody was afraid. She said, I got AIDS, I'll fucking bite you. And the cops didn't search her. Her old man ended up taking the sentence for it, which shouts out to Ralph, man. He let my mom, you know, come home. He didn't do no sucking shit. Like, try to put it on her, send her with women's prison. He ate the whole charge. He told the cops I beat her. She had to do what she was told to do. And that brought my mom home. That was the first time.
That's a stand-up dude.
Yeah. That was the first time, too, I realized my grandmother was more than just a Christian. Because we went to the Root Lady house and shit. My grandmother, I still remember seeing a chicken with his head cut off right across the yard and shit. Me and my sister, I was like, our grandmother definitely. I don't care how much she loved Jesus. When they got back to it, she went right back to what Africans did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right back to the Root Lady. But my mom came home.
You know, it's funny because you live so many different lives and you have so much experience. And then you think about Pops and being an ATL. And here's something for people even listening, even for myself to learn. When we hear the words defund the police, right? Yeah. I honestly don't think a lot of people know what the fuck that means.
No, that's a hell of a word. It's a strong statement. Yeah. I don't think that's a possibility in American culture. I think that what is attempting to be said is demilitarize the police, to not have all the funding going to things that make the police feel like an occupying force. Because when you're saying defund the police in Atlanta should be making more money. Like there's a brother who went to Morehouse who ended up policing, I think, in Brookhaven. And I was like, well, why do you stay in Atlanta on the force? He was just like, yo, we're not getting paid. We're not getting paid out here. But I wish I could. So, you know, I'd like for Atlanta police to be better trained. I'd like for them to be better paid. I'd like for them to have no interest loans to buy houses in the city, because I believe that our community is better when we policed by people who from the community, from communities like ours, or understand or empathetic to those communities. And so if I have Atlanta police and living in Snellville or Douglasville or Dawsonville coming in every day, he's just like an occupier. He's there his 8, 10, 12 hours and then he's back off. So he has no general interest in seeing the community rise. Or the threat for that is there, you know, versus my cousin who's a police in Atlanta. He grew up in Atlanta. He went to Atlanta public schools. He has an interest in seeing the streets stay safe, but not in a way that harms the relationship of the public and the police. So I think that there is possible to have a system of policing in my city. And I think locally when I talk about this stuff, because I don't know what other municipalities are like. I know New York police seem to be a lot more aggressive to people who are darker or olive tone. That in LA certainly can be scary too in Miami. So I think that in cities like Atlanta, you know, Birmingham, Tampa, St. Pete, Jacksonville, southern cities, Daytona, I think that there can be a different, more progressive style of police. And I think that's inclusive if you have the police be a part of the community. Yeah. So, but I don't think that we'll ever see police departments defunded. I just think that the federal dollars and state dollars that are coming to the police can be better allocated. Because I don't think, when you think defund the police, the first thing they're going to do is attack PAL. So the police athletically goes. That means kids who would be on the streets boxing.
I used to play basketball.
Exactly. And Atlanta got a great boxing program with PAL. So it's like, if we lose PAL in Atlanta, you lose a great boxing program. You lose the opportunity for, say, Matt Ryan wants to have a football program or a basketball program and partner with the police athletically. We don't have that when we don't have the opportunity. So I just say, when we're saying defund, think about what defund looks like to you so that you're not just repeating something you hear. So, because locally, defund might mean something in Tuskegee that's radically different from what it means in Atlanta. And I think we need to start thinking like that locally. What are the nuances, you know?
You know, when we think about the time we're in, obviously, COVID-19 comes, shuts down the world. Makes us realize. And actually, before I even go to that, I'm going to ask you, because this is something now that I really think of. COVID-19, it comes, it makes us sit down. Yeah. When you look back at it, what would you say that you learned from this? Because for me, I'm gonna say that I learned, I was like, oh shit, I started cleaning my garbage cans. I never cleaned my garbage cans. But what I'm saying is, I had the time. I started hosing them down. I've always was on the run. I'll get to that later. Now I had the time, and I realized, you know, how much I'm on the move. And you're on the move. You know what I mean? You're an artist. You're more than that. You're always on the move. And we, for one moment, for a while, we were sitting down. Totally.
And I'm still, I've opted. I'm chilling. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean like nothing's wrong. Or, you know, like I'm probably like Yeah, it's millions of dollars that we not making this year.
Yeah.
You know, and I was looking forward to making those millions. I had plans.
When do you plan on going on tour again?
I'll be back on tour next year.
Okay.
You know, God willing. But my thing is, I've missed so much. Like I got my oldest son with me today.
Yep.
Malik, he's 26 years old. But
shout out to Malik.
Yeah, exactly. The first half of his life, I was chasing it, trying to get it. And then I got it. And then once you get it, you got to keep getting it to keep it. So for the last 8 years, I've been on the road. You know, this 3 months has been the longest time I've spent in my house in 8 years. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it's strange, but what I found is that all the things that my grandparents taught me that are still there, and I've used them. I clean out my own trash now. I've been washing my own cars. I remember my grandmother's recipe for cornbread. Shouts out to the Hillbilly Kitchen. I couldn't remember how in the fuck to make my grandmother's cornbread, and found this white lady in Alabama who has this thing on YouTube called the Hillbilly Kitchen. And follow her recipe, and it was exactly my grandmother's recipe, minus a couple things, plus a couple things, and I tweaked it. So I did stuff like that. I've been doing the stuff my grandfather, did fish. Probably gonna do some hunting. So for me, I got a chance to be who I am as Michael Render, not just Killer Mike. Like I got to return to who I am. My kids are at the house, just popping up, kicking it. My older kids, not the younger ones, the older ones get to just kind of come by now. So that's just been good. For me, I've really gotten to be a husband and a father, and just like a regular guy. And
sure.
I definitely want to get back on the road. I definitely want to get back to making millions of dollars, but I can honestly say that probably going forward in my life, I'm going to block out like 3 months a year just for me and my family.
Clear your mind, man.
Yeah.
Even me, like I took a ride. I said maybe I'll do a couple of episodes and I hit you up, but I took the ride because I wanted to clear my mind.
Yeah.
I've been stuck in the house and things haven't been the same. It's not only me, meaning a lot of people are affected. The world is affected. But I will say this, and I really want your opinion for people who are listening, because you have really have been somebody that has been fighting with not only knowledge, but for the betterment of people, equality, the home ownership, listen, are we in a revolutionary time right now? Because meaning businesses feel Washington Redskins, now they're talking about they're going to change the name.
Yeah.
Hear me out 1 second. Companies are, some are bullshit.
Yeah.
You're just right. We hear you. But what I'm saying is people, I want your opinion. Are we in a time where there may be a shift to maybe we can't take away racism from redneck people that like say, and I don't mean only redneck, but meaning like people who are born that way.
Yeah.
Or taught that way.
Yeah.
But I just feel like this is a revolutionary time, like where it could be possible that what's going on now, changes could be really made. Am I?
It's always that time.
Yeah, but
when the people decide, and it seems that the people are deciding. Like the racism of rednecks is not the racism that keeps us from progressing. Because rednecks are poor white people that have been indoctrinated with racism to feel good as though they're superior over other people, but yet they stay at just as low a level. So at the time that Dr. King was organizing on the behalf of workers to unionize in places like Mississippi, the most poor white worker in the nation was the Mississippian. Yet they were fighting against unionizing with black people because they didn't want to unionize with niggers. But the fact you didn't want to unionize with niggers mean that nobody got what they deserved. Skip Bayless said at the beginning of the Colin Kaepernick kneeling controversy that probably the biggest mistake that some white players were making was not standing in solidarity with him, because had they done that, it would have finally broken the stronghold that the NFL had in negotiating, because it would have shown all the players in solidarity. And Skip, I thought, was a brilliant analysis of that, because Skip is perceived as pretty conservative, but he understood the power of solidarity and leverage. So anytime that people want to change the system, they can. If people want to change the system, they didn't even have to be told to stay inside. All they had to do was not show up for work for a week and watch the whole system start to break. But it seems like to now that the people are ready to. And I don't know how much change comes out of that, whether it's incremental or whether it's sweeping and broad. But I know the possibility of change is there in a way that I've never seen it in my lifetime. And if you
is this something that stuck out? Not to cut you up, but is this something that stuck out to you that has been done so far these past like couple of months?
Yeah, that fucking Amish. What are you talking about? The Amish showed up to protest.
Yeah.
When you never seen such a tapestry of protesters. Even if you look back in the 60s, you're looking at protesters with predominantly black with white people sprinkled through the front lines and stuff that was sympathizers. If you look at the labor movement early in the 20th century with Eugene Debs, Lucy Parsons, and anarchists, honestly, that were just saying that you value self over nation and treat men fairly, those movements were still predominantly white working class in a way that the black working class was still separate and not considered the whole, even though the leaders weren't necessarily. Eugene Debs wasn't a racist, but when he was talking, it was still primarily white men. Now you have the opportunity where you look in the streets, it's everybody mobbing at the same time. And if you look globally, it's everybody. There were protests in France, South Korea, you know what I'm saying? Parts of Africa, people coming out in the street. So for me, it's like, oh shit, like it really is everybody ready at one time. So the possibility for change is there, but it's only there if after the peaceful protests, after the burning, looting, and shooting even you have to plot, plan, strategize, organize, mobilize to capitalize on the moment. If you don't plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize, you will not be able to capitalize on this moment in as big a way as you can. Tearing down symbolisms of a loser country that tried to secede from the nation is one thing, but getting systemic racism eviscerated from law books is another thing, but it's possible. So as we're tearing down statues of Robert E. Lee or Davis or Davis or what's the other one? Bank, I think it was one name, Bank.
Columbus.
Yeah. While we're doing that, what we have to remember to do is to tear down the 13th Amendment so that it abolished the slavery. You see, because the slavery is abolished except for the prisoner. You have been a slave. When you belong to the state, you were a product of you were property of the state, and you were used in any way the state wanted to use you. That's slavery. And if we don't take that language out, there will always be an incentive to lock people up who look like me and lock up the poor, no matter what they look like. So I would just say in our organizing, let's make sure that we support things like the restoration of felons' rights, full restoration of their rights. Let's make sure we're supporting the further abolishment of drug laws. Let's make sure that we create programs that are restorative in prison, meaning like in DeKalb County now, in their county jail, I think they can put you on your pathway to getting your GED and even trades. I'd like to salute their CEO, Michael Thurman, out there is doing a great job. Their jail is not filled to capacity. I think that their goal is to make sure it never is again. So I have to applaud stuff like that. But I think that the public now has an opportunity to put even more pressure on municipalities and get greater growth and progression out of this moment.
Yeah, and that's good. When they think about, I don't know if you saw that thing floating around where they were talking about reparations. About $350,000. Did you see that thing?
It should honestly be about $500,000 per. If it's $15 trillion, it should be about $500,000 per.
My question to you: is that possible to ever happen? I mean, not that you know the fucking future.
What is it?
But
possible?
Your opinion.
If I know that Bernie Sanders, at first was okay. At first was not pro reparations in the way that it was being asked for, and the way I say it was being asked for is in HR 40. Which is a bill that first proposed by the late John Connors, who left last year. He wanted to have a study of reparations done to see what we're even owed. There's also a study out of the Baptist Church called the Angela Project, which deals with from the time the first enslaved African was brought here to now, how the church was culpable in it and what is owed back. So is $500,000 per black person who's a descendant of a slave possible? In this country, absolutely anything is possible because capitalism has made anything possible. Is it possible with the oligarchs that like Mitch McConnell currently run this country? In my personal opinion, absolutely not. Does that mean we should stop organizing for it? No, it does not mean we should stop organizing for it. In fact, I believe we should push harder. I just don't trust the oligarchs that run it. But it doesn't mean that I won't fight for it. Doesn't mean that I won't side with it. But when I say absolutely not, I have to tell myself that so that I never stop pushing for individual rights and freedoms. So, my grandfather was born in 1922. He was abandoned by his father by the time he was in third grade. He dropped out of school in the third grade with basically a third grade literacy and worked to make sure his sisters and mothers would be okay. With that said, he died a landowner, died homeowners, died and left independent children and grandchildren after him. And if a person born in poverty in Edenton, Georgia can do that from 1922, to 2002, essentially when he left us, you can't tell me anything's not possible. My grandmother's mother taught me how to sew a button on a shirt her mother was a slave. So the daughter of a slave, of an enslaved woman, taught me basic life skills, cooking, cleaning, how to take care of yourself, wash your face, ABCs. That she taught me those things. And because I was taught those things, the knowledge that I've given to my children is knowledge given directly from an enslaved person. It's just practicality. So I saw that family go from a family that was enslaved to sharecropping to only 33-acre farm, which we still own in Alabama today. Got my $500 check from the timber company from cutting down, trees on our land. So
now you go visit.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We're going
nice.
down to clean up our great grandparents' graves and stuff. I just got a picture from my dad's side of my great grandfather and mother. So I'm from a long line of just Southern people who made a way. So I have to believe we can make a way without. But if we were to get 350,000 to 500,000, what I would say, to anybody who's getting or pushing for it, let's make sure that we start doing financial literacy now. Because what I would not want to see was a wealth transfer to us and it leave us within a year. I've known people that have used and fucked up shit. I fucked up $100,000 in a year.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to fuck it up. So I would want in reparations, in addition to a cash payment, which is certainly deserved, I would want some things like promises on education, some tax incentives, some tax breaks. I would want some actual land. You know what I mean? There's plenty of land in the South that we should have and use to develop. I like for government contracts to be given to owners of that land the same way they did in the Midwest. Over 80, 90, 100 years ago. I'd like for there to be, if marijuana is going to be grown, why shouldn't we be growing it? Why shouldn't we have government contracts? If a soybean needs to be grown. So for me, I'd figure out a way to marry us to the economy in the same way that slavery married us to the economy. And so that we can use, and then we could properly pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and participate. It's funny because I did an interview with Bloomberg magazine, and after I did it, I had to remember who I was talking to. This is Bloomberg. These are finance people. I called a reporter back and I said, Cadillac was going out of business at one point. Nobody was, in the Cadillacs anymore. And a European person came over, I think, to handle their marketing. So he didn't have the same kind of racism that Americans had, because a black guy couldn't just go buy a Cadillac. He started marketing directly to black people. Let them buy. And all of a sudden, Cadillac exploded. It became, Cadillac and Lincoln, of course, are famous mob cars, the underworld cars, juke joint cars, period. But their dollars save that economy. So essentially, I called it back to say, there should be an interest in corporations investing in the African American community, because the stronger the economy is in the African American community, the greater economy is, because the African American community dollar becomes stronger. They become consumers. They become business owners and proprietors. So there's an interest. She said the head of the Atlanta Fed said the exact same thing as you. So the head of the Feds here, in terms of the who handles money and currency, agrees with that. So how is it that a rapper who just happens to have grown up in a mixed black, economic community, common sense, just old people in common sense taught me that, and some of the greatest financial minds on earth agree, yet we have these misinformed people in the middle arguing over bullshit. So the greater economy is never what it can be, because we keep allowing this one community to be stifled, which is criminal.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. Sitting here with my brother.
My bruh.
Mr. Render. Michael Render. Killer Mike. A good fellow. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Chea.
Yo, what's up? This is the Trilogy Bum B. You're now tuned in to my brother, Premium Pete, and the Premium Pete podcast. Relax. He's a friend of ours.
All right, we back. Sitting here in ATL, undisclosed location. My man, Mr. Michael Render.
What up?
Killer Mike.
Yeah.
I seen this thing that somebody wrote, what COVID and racism have in common. People don't believe people don't believe they exist if they haven't been affected personally.
Yeah.
When I see somebody wrote that, I was like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then here's another one I want to run by. Somebody wrote, people complain about rioting, but forget that the KKK used to burn down black houses and churches.
Yeah.
Back to the first one, it's funny too, because it's like, we're in a time now where you'll see racism is being, it's always been existed, but it's being brought out like more. Like you're being able to see it more because people are getting fed up from things that they don't understand. With this whole all lives matter.
Blue lives matter.
Blue lives matter. And honestly, it amazes me that we still have to have the conversation that if black lives don't matter, then all lives don't matter, right? Because how could you say all lives matter if these lives don't matter?
Yeah.
And it's crazy that we're still sitting here, and this is, and I've spoke about this before, particularly to white people. It's crazy to me that we still have to, like, people getting offended when they hear Black Lives Matter, white people.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. If you're listening, it's nothing personal against you. Okay? It's until we fix what's going on, until we fix the authority that is scared. Like, if you're scared to police a community, don't be a police officer.
Yeah.
Go to the meter maids. Okay.
If you don't have friends that look like the people in that community and are from that community like those, you shouldn't be policing those communities.
But here's the crazy thing, in your journey and all these years, and I know you're the type of dude that has mixed with and moved with and made money with white people, black people, Asian people, like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure all good people.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to explain to someone over the years or even recently that why, like, especially white people or white friends, like, why they shouldn't get offended if they hear Black Lives Matter, or why they shouldn't, why they, or how they could help out to contribute to it?
I definitely have. And ultimately, though, I think the best advice I've grown over the years is white people should be teaching white people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I'm not willing to be empathetic and help you learn the way. But the miseducation that allows you to be willfully ignorant, bigoted, prejudiced, or racist is crippling you. And you don't realize that. And you're not always willing to believe it or accept it from someone looking like me. So what I suggest people do is to look up the Blue Eye and Brown Eye Experiment by Jane Elliott, because she's a white educator. She's from Iowa.
You met her?
Absolutely. I know her. She's my friend.
I know you said that before, but I had to remember. Like,
I've met her. I went to her house and hung out and talked to her daughter, Mary, a lot, and talked to her. But Jane was so affected by the assassination of Dr. King that she created this experiment to show a class full of white children what racism was, what it looked like, what it felt like, touched like, tastes like, so they would know and become more empathetic human beings and see people as human beings and treat people as human beings and respect the humanity in all people. And I think that if we were teaching her lessons and had her as a virtual teacher, while she's alive, and even, God forbid she should go anytime soon posthumously, if we have that at pre-K with white children, I think that you'd have a much different country in 20 years. In terms of people who are white, you should have friends who don't look like you, who don't agree with you, who are not ethnically from your same background and religion. Because in order to be a full human being and a part of the tapestry that we like to call America, or this vegetable soup, you need to know that other people have given a lot to this country. So when black people say they've given to this country, we're not just talking about slavery. Don't belittle us like that or allow the argument to become that finite. If you wouldn't have traffic lights if it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have air conditioning if it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have gas masks if it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have so many things and inventions. The monkey wrench was created by Jack Johnson. Think about that. He's known mostly for whooping white ass in a ring, and yet he was.
Shouts to Jack Johnson.
Yeah, he was genius enough to create a tool. The real McCoy. You hear that's the real McCoy. That invention is a self-lubricating something on a locomotive that Elijah McCoy invented. So, black people have made a tremendous contribution to not just the country, the world. When you look at the Washington Monument, that's a copy of a monument in Egypt. When you look at Christian philosophy or Abrahamic religion, period, it comes out of the Eastern Horn of Africa, the oldest Bible in Ethiopia, the premises for a lot of biblical stories right out there, right out of Kemet and Kush. So for me, white people have been robbed of an opportunity to know true history and true world history. So they've been robbed of an opportunity to appreciate other ethnic groups, in particular black people. And what it does is gives you a false sense of pride or confidence that your way is the way, when your way is propaganda and mythology to prop up an imaginary thing called the white race that was only created about 500 years ago. So,
most people talk about, born racist. A lot of people say there's no way you're born racist. People say you're taught it. And I believe that. I don't know what your opinion
You're
is.
taught racism?
You're taught-
Absolutely you are.
You're not born racist, right? You're taught.
But the system shows you very young what racism is. Hence that little 3-year-old British girl says a black guy.
Yes.
You know, so the system, it doesn't take you long to learn. You know, all you gotta do is watch television and live to 3, and you're pretty much acclimated to a racism by then.
The crazy thing for me is a lot of people who are taught racism. A lot of these kids don't even know why fully.
No.
Meaning like their uncle may say, "Oh, they don't mess with black people."
Yeah,
and that's all they know. But if you ever say why, because your uncle said so, but what is your uncle talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so when you think about how it's taught in the household, particularly, and you know, and where we are today, you know, I think that my prayer is that we continue, like you said, to teach in the household at a young age history, equality, and let people know that, you know, because it's crazy to me sometimes when I think about this, but there's suburb people, meaning could be a girl, a boy, a young kid, you know, that probably never really ever seen many black people.
Well, I relate to those people, and that's one thing I think that uniquely gives me some perspective and empathy and understanding when I talk to people. Because I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in a neighborhood that was gentrified by black people, pushed poor white people out, working class and middle class black people moved in. I grew up in a neighborhood where I went to all black schools. I only had 3 white teachers my entire life. They were pretty well acclimated to the system as it was, with black leadership and teachers, with black students. So it was never any, never felt any overt racism from them. That was interesting. I went to schools named for black people. I went to Frederick Douglass High School. Our rival was Benjamin E. Mays. All my teachers went to Booker T. Washington or Morehouse or Spelman, Clark, and Morris Brown. So I grew up in Atlanta, where all my heroes and villains were black. So I relate to white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in that if you're white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in the middle of the country, you've never been around black people. You haven't had to. So you have the luxury of ignorance, meaning the Civil War was taught, if you're in the South, the war of Northern aggression. You know what I'm saying? The Great Compromise, in which blacks had been sold out after 7 years of Reconstruction and betrayed by the federal government and basically turned the South back over into the hands of the Dixiecrats. You get taught that was the Great Compromise. Well, where were black people in the Great Compromise? We got left out of the compromise and fucked over. You know what I mean? So, but if you don't learn that, you don't know. You don't know how to confront your own racism. And what's crazy to me, though, is black people are still held up as idols in this idolatry of sports and entertainment, but there's a subtle resentment. Like, because you make money, you shouldn't say anything.
Yeah, and I shut up and dribble.
Yeah, and I tell white people all the time, or I tell black people, you expect white people to be kind to you. They aren't always kind to each other. When you look at the problems in white families between older and younger generations, when you look at white people who make money versus white people who don't and how they treat each other. So you're seeing the manifestation of, I tell people when they talk about black people being hyper violent and materialistic, I was like, well, you act like the people who owned you. The people whose last name you had, like in the South, I see you acting like the people who owned you. You're infighting, you're talking bad to each other. If you look at the movie The Help and you saw those white women treated each other and the black help is just kind of watching them treat each other badly, you learn this behavior from one another. You learn how to whip your children with electric cords and switches and stuff. You learn that. That's stuff that's carried over. Slavery was only, again, like 150 years. That's not very long. So that's 2 75-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, for me, I think that there could be a 20-year plan that really helps erase the American form of racism that we have. But that comes with a truth in teaching and a cultural shift that I don't know people are prepared to make, because it just feels good to not have to work and claim all the glory. Like when you get to say shit like, well, the Confederacy is a part of my heritage and shit like that, you didn't have to fight in that brutal war. You didn't have to be on a battlefield before the invention of ether and have limbs cut off, all in the name of perpetuating or keeping slavery in an institution. And now you can't even say, well, it was about economics, it wasn't about slavery, because the cornerstone speech by Stevens, the vice president of the Confederacy, says absolutely it was about slavery. So, so for me, it's just about our white people, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in this country, ready to give up the willful ignorance, ready and progress. And if they're not, it's not our job to keep trying to make them. It's our job to make sure the game is played fair through legislation and making sure our full constitutional rights are honored. But it's also at that point, Black people are going to have to realize you're going to have to become far more self-sufficient in terms of how you handle yourself, because the system is just built not in your favor.
And to invest in themselves. And that's something that I've been seeing even more and more. And you always been like this, but I want you talk about how white people talk to each other, how they, and you're right, a lot of the people handle like that. Some do, some don't. I think that, goes for a lot of different, people, but I love seeing how you've been showing love to a lot of people. Yeah. Not saying this is new. This is something you've always done, but meaning like I've been seeing, especially a lot of like, Black women, Black men that I'm friends with, lifting each other up. You got to. Talking and supporting more and than I ever seen. You know what I mean?
You got to.
Even like, for instance, shouts to Charlemagne, but his birthday the other day.
That's my man.
And the way you spoke, like, I love seeing that. Because I got love for him. I got love for you. I'm just saying, it's important that we do that because, it is sometimes, people don't know, what I mean? Yeah. And you'd be surprised. Like, I was talking to a therapist the other day and we talk about her business. And she was telling me, you know what the number one sign for suicide is? And I was like, what? And she was like, happy. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she was like, a lot of happy people, not all, but a lot of happy people, that is a trigger. Think about Robin Williams.
I was going to say Robin Williams talking about that.
You think about who just...
Anthony Bourdain.
The Anthony Bourdain. You think about, my friend and rest in peace, Jazz Fly, which is crazy to even think of, but like, these people are, successful and happy and smiling and made people laugh, but deep down inside. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, amongst this, it's so good to uplift, our fellow brothers, our fellow sisters, and let them know how much they're appreciated and loved. And also there's a lot of people, that are doing a lot of different things. Now, I don't know who you believe in or not, meaning what they do, but people like I know Tamika
Mallory.
Tamika Mallory. I mean, another powerful
sisters, man, 'cause she's a leader.
Presence.
She's a leader.
And
absolutely,
I mean, her speeches are crazy.
Yeah, her
words
as
cut
an orator,
like,
she's amazing, like a hot knife through butter. Nina Turner is another one.
Yep.
The brother My Son.
My Son. Shouts to My Son.
My brother's an amazing brother.
Who else? Sean King.
Yeah, I like Sean. I don't have a problem with Sean. I like Sean a lot. I'm glad that he understands my importance, the importance I place on guns now. I hate that he had to find out in such a way why it's important. Your Second Amendment rights are important beyond tyranny, just self-protection. I saw that a group of former police officers essentially had a Facebook page where they was mocking a reel, threatening his life. And my belief is that, should someone threaten your life, they should know that comes with a price. I honestly feel like we don't take this shit seriously enough. We don't understand that the people who we love and look up to were murdered with assistance from the state. So when you jump in this shit, take this shit seriously. And that's not saying Sean doesn't. That's just saying understand when you plan to be an organizer and you're upsetting a system that has made people comfortable for over hundreds of years, that you are shaking up a box of rattlesnakes. So when that top pops off, get ready to kill some snakes. I'll kill you. There's not, it's not a time you see me in the city that my weapon isn't on me or near me.
Yeah.
So as I just left my father's house, I just ordered 2 new handguns, new shotgun. My father is a shooter. My son has gone and shot on his own. We're going to run out and shoot Saturday. So for me, it doesn't save everything, but you gotta take responsibility. If you want food, you better grow it.
Yeah.
You want water, you better put out a bucket when it rains. And that's not to say that's how you get it all, but you better know how to get it. So, I don't have a problem. I like the brother Sean. Hope he does well. I like the old Vanguard, Cornel West. I'm a big fan of Dr. Claude Anderson. Yep. I'm a fan of, everyone has something to bring to the table. I don't follow any leader all the way as much as I feel. I try to find my own way, but I collaborate with everyone. You know what I'm saying?
Before, as we wind this episode down, before we went on air, we were talking about
Even on the conservative side,
Yeah.
there are people that I show a lot of love to. So
Yeah. Well, let that be clear. Let that for the record. Let that be clear. Before we went on air, we were speaking about Stone Mountain in Georgia.
which we can see from the window.
Yep, and which is crazy. And the video shows, I mean, at least over 1,000.
Yeah, they say
about 1,000.
Yeah,
1,000 black women and
men and women. Yep, went out there armed, showed discipline, went out there, did a good demonstration.
Now, I remember you were saying that Stone Mountain is 70%.
It's 71% African American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. For people listen, especially black men and women, and you speak about this all the time, why it's important to be a gun owner.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And why it's important to, I guess, bear arms, right?
Absolutely. I don't necessarily think open carry is always the way. And that demonstration was a good demonstration, but I'm not going to open carry my AR-15. This is an open carry state. It's perfectly legal to, but I'm not going to open carry. I'm a concealed carry license holder. I conceal carry on a daily basis. I'm proficient with a handgun and rifle. I can protect myself, but I don't think, for me, the demonstration made sense, but I wouldn't be open carrying just on Piedmont or Ponce de Leon or somewhere, because that's asking either for police engagement or engagement from another gun owner. And I don't necessarily want to promote or prompt that. So you have to be smart about it. But not only am I a proponent for African American gun ownership and American gun ownership, period, I'm a proponent for training. You have to know how to use a weapon. And I'm a proponent for every household having 5 guns. You should have a bolt action rifle for hunting. You should have a semi-automatic rifle for defense against tyranny and self-defense against fuck shit. You should have a revolver in case you have to assassinate someone on behalf of the mob. The shell stay in the revolver. You should have a semi-automatic because it allows you more firepower. Handgun. You should have a shotgun. So.
And maybe a pair of brass knuckles.
Yeah. Definitely the brass knuckles. Just in case you don't want to kill, you want to prove a point.
Let me tell you. I think I ask this every time we sit down and do an episode, and I mean this so much, man. But why shouts to Bernie Sanders, man.
Oh, my man.
I mean, I just don't understand why we can't get to. I would have loved to see him.
I would have to. Yeah. I would have loved to see him, and
he's everything.
I would have liked to see. I would have loved to see Nina Turner in his cabinet. Yep. I would have liked to see. I hope that she stays on board to lead the progressive movement in the absence of Senator Sanders. I hope that. And what I'm seeing absence is not just he's gone from the progressive movement, but I think that when he endorsed Biden, that there were a number of progressives that just weren't with that move. So I think they were looking for leadership. And I think Nina's there to fill that vacuum. So I'll gladly follow her. I'm still a big fan and friend of Sanders and will continue to be. Although I'm very displeased with the Democratic Party. And I think that black people need to use their vote like a golden coin or a magic ticket and leverage it for the highest bidder. Who's going to give our community the most so that we have our own legs to stand on. And if you're not prepared to do that, you just won't get our vote. And I think that needs to be the strategy locally, statewide, and federally.
Sure. They got to earn
It's amazing that, though, in the time of the pandemic, how much of Bernie Sanders' policy has come up.
Yeah.
Free hospitalization, healthcare has come up. Stimulus has come up by way of giving people greater unemployment. People are working across party lines for the betterment of all. God didn't have to send a plague for this to happen. We just could have did this last year and voted for Sanders, and it
would have been good. And Bernie, is very open on the marijuana.
Yeah. Some black people acted like they got offended by him talking about it's a part of his black agenda involvement in marijuana. And to those people, I just want to say, when liquor was probated and people like Joe Kennedy took part in the illegal sale of liquor and enriched his family, and his boys went on to become senators and presidents, and his family is still rich to this day. But had he not been involved illegally in liquor, where would his family be? And when liquor was deprobated, this country was chopped up into divisions where different cartels essentially ran the liquor business. Until this day, you have a black man who helped Nearest Green, who helped Jack Daniels perfect his formula, but never got to profit from it. If we don't look at marijuana the same way, we're foolish. Marijuana was illegalized on the backs of black people in 1937. jazz. It was said jazz clubs put black and white people together. Marijuana caused black men to go crazy and rape white women, helped get it illegal. If we don't want in on marijuana, we're foolish, because for the next 100 years, marijuana is the new liquor.
Yes.
And if you don't get in on it now and claim your percentage, your kids are going to be looking at you 25 years from now saying you were foolish. So I think it was a foolish mistake brushing that off from Sanders, because he was the only one willing to say if African Americans are 15% of this country, they should be 15% of the $1 billion marijuana trade that's coming. And we slipped by taking that lightly. And I don't care who took it lightly, whether it was my friends or not, whether it was my leaders or not, we slipped taking that lightly.
Yeah. Could we see a Killer Mike strain one day?
Absolutely. You'll see a Killer Mike.
Well, first of all, shouts to, there's a bunch of, I mean, Jim Jones is in the weed game with Saucy.
Tid got a great one. Titty Boy, 2 Chainz, I'm sorry. I call him Tid, like he's my friend, but 2 Chainz got a great one.
Who else? Al Harrington with Viola.
Shout out to Al. I haven't smoked Al Harrington. I haven't smoked his yet though.
Yeah,
I want to smoke. I think Spitter got one coming too. I want to smoke Spitters because he and I smoke real heavy OGs, real cushions. Burner is amazing. Shouts out to Cookies.
Yep. And Sherbinsky, you ever seen Sherbinsky?
I don't know. I haven't seen the Sherbinsky.
That's the orange. I haven't seen it. I gotta check it out. He's ill with it too. But Burner, what they continue to impress me.
Yeah, I want to sell. All I want to sell is the heaviest OG indica kush I can. That's it. All I want is one.
The one that knocks.
You know how they make bourbon in Kentucky? That's it. It's whiskey, but it's bourbon because it's in Kentucky. That's all I want. I want my version of bourbon. It's just a heavy OG kush, and that's the only one I want to grow. And I'll say,
Run the Jewels 4.
Run the Jewels 4 is in store.
Came out in a time where the world needed it the most and didn't even know that.
Thank you.
Was that a surprise release?
No. Well, it was supposed to come out Friday, but after the speech and with the environment that was going on, the fans just called for it that Wednesday. So they got it that Wednesday. And with only 2 days reporting to the billboards, we came in number 10 on the top 200. When we fell to number 11 on the top 200. And number 1 rap album in 2 weeks. And a big billboard up on 85.
When's this Grammy coming, man?
You know what, man? Oh,
you
man.
almost had it last time. Now you got to.
Yeah, we got nominated. But what's crazy, they didn't nominate anything for Run the Jewels 3. They nominated our song from Baby Driver with us and Danger Mouse and Big Boy. And although I was happy to be nominated, I was in my feelings, man, because I'm like, our album deserved to be nominated too.
Absolutely.
So this time, we're going to keep working our butt off and pray that our album doesn't get overlooked, because we deserve it on this one. Like, straight the fuck up. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yeah. I'm not going to play humble. We deserve to walk away.
Perfect time. First of all, not only perfect music by 2 individuals, but perfect timing.
Yeah.
People need that. Music heals, man.
It does, man. It does.
Music, it's like, man, music heals, man.
And it pushes you. Like, you can go to limits that you didn't know. Like, like I can see how my grandmother and them, they worked cotton fields and they sang and they, you know what I'm saying? Music soothes you. It heals you. It propels you. It pushes you, absolutely. So I think there's an energy. There's just an energy in it,
Run the Jewels 4, maybe 2021, back on tour.
Yeah.
It's out now. Make sure you stream it, buy it. Trigger Warning, Netflix.
Yeah,
Trigger Warning. Back.
Yeah, I'm working on something else cool now too. I can't talk about it yet. Okay. But it's going to put my face.
No NDAs over here, okay?
Yeah.
But Trigger Warning that was 1 season, right?
Yes, that was one season.
And the Cripicola, is it still moving?
Yeah, it's still moving. You can buy it if you're in Atlanta. You can buy it at 365 Edgewood Avenue.
Okay.
You can buy
the other one was.
You can buy it at most places. We got a store. I call my barbershop stores because we sell retail. So we got 3461 Roosevelt Highway, 365 Edgewood Avenue, and we have State Farm Arena, which is closed right now because of COVID and the NBA shutting down.
You talk about your barbershops, the swag.
The barbershops, yeah. So we sell them out of there too. But they also sell wherever Exotic Pops is sold. And right now we're working on a plan to do national distribution. And I want to have a bottling company. I think that this can be, at the very minimum, $100 million company and better. And,
absolutely.
That's my goal. I want to see Cripicola, Blood Pop, Jamaican Jam Rock. I want to see, I want to see the Miami Boys, Hurricane, Fruit Punch. I want to see, I want to see whatever the Supreme Team cream soda.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So,
and you spoke about this plenty of times before. We have Chinatown.
Yes.
We have Little Italy.
Yep. Little Odessa.
Right. You have Koreatown.
Yep.
Right. what don't we have?
But we need a brown town. You're
Yeah.
supposed to have, and Atlanta essentially is a huge version of a brown town. And that doesn't mean you exclude everybody else. No, everybody's inclusive. Everybody's dollar's welcome in K-Town.
Absolutely.
When I go to LA, I go to K-Town. My homegirl Alice, man, we have great Korean barbecue.
Yep.
There are all these businesses that are just like the American businesses you go, but they're Korean. So I go to a Haagen-Dazs out there. It is not a Haagen-Dazs, but it has the best ice cream in the goddamn world. You know? So for me, Black people need to do that. You need your McDowell's for every McDonald's.
Yes.
Or if there's a McDonald's in your neighborhood, you should own it. I go to two Chick-fil-A's. They're owned by Black people. It's not that I don't like other Chick-fil-A's. I just want to make sure those Chick-fil-A's stay in business.
Sure.
I want to see them grow. Because when it's time for a Black baseball team in that community to get uniforms, guess who's going to buy it? The owner of that Chick-fil-A, you know? If that owner of that Chick-fil-A doesn't even live in that community, is not from that community, they're going to be less likely to be tied to charitable things in that community. Not that they don't care, but it's not on their radar. They don't live in that community, you know? So for me, I want us to own more of the national chains that are out there and creating more of the ones that we can pivot into ourselves. And I want us to I tell every young athlete and actor and hip hop person or anyone who can afford to, when you can, buy something in Atlanta. I don't care if you put your mother there, your father, your baby's mom, your baby's, I don't care, but put something here because Tyler Perry has a studio here. That does not happen without a Black mayor. That Black mayor who understands the subtle relationship between corporate and private interests doesn't happen without the first Black mayor almost 50 years ago. The first Black mayor 50 years ago never happens 47 years ago, never happens if his grandfather isn't the unofficial Black mayor of the district that's called Edgewood and Auburn Avenue. So you have this over 120 year relationship of Black people understanding the power of networking and stuff here. So if we don't continue to have that, then we're doomed.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I mean, does that make you feel humbled that you and obviously a lot of Atlanta, but you and Tip really piggybacked to get to help Mayor Keisha Bottoms become mayor of Atlanta?
Yeah. Well, I would argue that our speeches on the steps that day put those 720 people who got her elected in the voting booth.
Yeah.
And that
does that humble you though? When you think about just a kid, you know?
Yeah, but it humbles me because
to that 15-year-old kid?
Yeah, that's not the way the story is written when you're in Miami or LA or New York. And that's for any kid. Fuck being a Black kid in those places. For any kid in New York coming out the projects or from a working class, or if you're not interconnected with the runners of who runs that city, it's hard to become something in that way. All I ever wanted to be was respected. And I don't mean that in a cliche way. I wanted to be able to walk in the restaurant 5 minutes before they close and them to say, oh no, Mike comes in. I wanted to be able to walk in the back of the restaurant through the kitchen. You know what I mean? I wanted to be,
style.
Yeah, absolutely. No bullshit. My father told me his father died when he was 10 in an accident. He told me my grandfather never walked in a back door in his life. And my father's like, I've never walked in the back door in my life. You understand what I'm saying? My father was born in apartheid. My father was born in 1955. You know what I'm saying? It was still Jim Crow, heavy.
Listen, man, we have voting coming up soon.
Yes, census first.
Census, yep.
Yeah, everyone make sure you're counted, and then make sure your vote will be voted in November.
Yep, and there's only one way to get this guy out.
Yeah.
Biden's a little lost, but I'd rather take Biden than take this guy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, no matter who gets in there, just know though that most important elections are the local ones. Like,
like congressmen.
And even more local.
Yeah.
Who's your prosecutor? There's a prosecutorial race coming up in Georgia, and we have a runoff next month. So who's your prosecutor going to be? Who are the judges? Who sent your homeboy? I met with one of the prosecutors here, and I told him, I said, you sent two of my partners to jail for life. You let two of my partners off. I can't promise you the ones who got life deserve it, and I know two of the ones who got off probably did. So I'm about 50-50 with you. You know what I mean?
Some days I fuck with you, some days I don't.
Yeah, So, and that was the truth of it. But I know who I own that booth. I know who I voted for. You know what I mean? So for me, it's important for us to start on a local level to start educating ourselves. On who's running locally and why. And how do they connect to my community and what could I do for or not for them to make sure they hold that seat or don't hold that seat.
Yeah.
So no matter who wins the soap opera called a national election, on a local level, who are going to be your state representatives, your judges, your prosecutors, your mayors, and your governors is what matters.
Yeah, vote them in. Vote the right ones in.
Absolutely.
Lastly, I will say this. The journey has been amazing. I continue to be inspired by you. Honored to be call you my friend.
Absolutely. As am I you.
You know, do you ever look back? Because I'm proud of you, man. But do you ever look back? Like, is there something that makes like is there a moment or moments that you could think of that stick out to you that make you proud, that make you happy?
Man, I haven't really stopped to commiserate much yet, but I can honestly say, becoming successful as one half of the greatest rap group in the world right now.
Run the jewels.
Absolutely. Because that's all I ever wanted to be was a rapper, man. Like all the other stuff, other people saw in me and they put into me and they brought out of me. They saw me as like my father. The proudest moment I can say is my father called me. My father told me at 19 when I dropped out of Morehouse. So for people who may not understand, when a black child tells you he's going to Morehouse, that's the equivalent of a white child telling their parent, I got accepted to Harvard, or Yale or Princeton. So, telling my father I got accepted to Morehouse as a working class man who had lost his father at 10 was probably one of the proudest moments of his life. For a year later, for your son to be telling you, I'm going to drop out and I'm going to do music and be an artist, he responded to me by saying, they call it starving artist for a reason. So the next 6-7 years of my life, I was determined to prove my dad wrong and show him I can be an artist, and I did. And when I became a rapper, he was happy. And when I became a successful rapper, he was happy. When I struggled, he encouraged. And then when Run the Jewels popped, he was really happy, of course. But there was an article that came out that talked about me as a leader, not just as a rapper. And he sent me the article and he said, I wanted to tell you I apologize, son, because I discouraged you by saying that, it's a starving artist. They call it that for a reason. He said, but it wasn't that I was trying to tell you I didn't have confidence in you. He said, but the man in this article is who I've always seen you as. Mm-hmm. He said, as a child, I would walk you in a room full of children. And if I left for 5 minutes and came back, you were leading those children, telling them, this is what we're going to do. In high school, when you were about to get suspended for protesting the national anthem, like Chris Jackson was, he was like, you were a leader. Those teachers told me you organized the kids to do this. He said, so I've always seen you as this. And I don't ever want you to think I doubted you were a rapper, but my son's a leader. And by the time we were on the phone, both of us were crying. You know what I mean? Because, my father's a working class, blue collar man. He doesn't get very emotional. He's very structured. He irons all his uniforms on Sunday nights. You know what I mean? So it took a lot for him to say that. And that meant probably more to me than anything because, I wanted to make my father proud. I knew how much I disappointed him, my grandmother, and my family by dropping out of Morehouse. But to know that your father always saw you as a leader and not just as a rapper.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I try to encourage my children. Once I got past what I want them to do, I encourage them to just follow truly your dreams and to lead.
Sure. And try to turn them in reality.
Yeah.
When you say about your father, it's crazy because it's like, even I think about I think as they get older too, it's like, my father cannot say something sentimental anymore without crying.
Because they hold it for so long.
Ever been that way.
They hold it for
never.
Because they have to stay G code. And I got 2 dads.
Yeah.
I got a non-bio and a bio dad, and both of them just G codes, and I've seen both of them in the last 5 years shed tears. That's why when I cry, I don't give a shit. I cry, I cried on camera because I was angry, and people are like, oh, you're gonna cry? I shoot you in your fucking face too. You know what I'm saying? With a revolver and get away with it. So it's like if you don't, that's such is life. But I let it out. You know what I'm saying?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nah. Man. I fight. I just, what I mean? But my kids have seen me cry. I'm proud of them. I cry. I love them. I hug them. I kiss them. You know what I'm saying? I still kiss my boys and hug them. I love them. Yeah. So, our fathers though were from a tougher time.
Yeah, they didn't hug each other. Yeah, their fathers.
Yeah, exactly. Even some didn't have fathers because of death and other things. So I have learned to be from my father's death. Both have grown older. I've learned to let that sensitivity show earlier. You still there are times you have to be tough and a disciplinarian, but my kids know I'm sensitive.
And we live that lifestyle.
Yeah,
that presence
over presence. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's been important. Yeah. But listen, my brother.
Absolutely.
Great to sit with you. We're in an undisclosed location in ATL overlooking the highway.
Yeah.
Just the words of a good brother. So
I love and respect you, brother. And I just appreciate all you bring to the culture. I appreciate presence over presence. I appreciate all the positivity you bring. I appreciate you honestly and fairly sharing your story of in and out of prison so that men can see redemption and restoration as possible. I just appreciate you, Pete, for being honest, all the way through. From the time I met you with Con Black Jack, God Bless the Dead, to now and building a friendship. You're just one of the people I'm continually impressed by. And you're one of my encouragers, and I appreciate you.
Likewise. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
My man.